This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Bob, I saw you just a moment ago on the gallery view on the Zoom with Dave Van Horn, along with the usual cast of characters. I'm not in on every Zoom, but I could be today since it was just before the show started. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I guess the rain stopped here in Fayetteville. I know some probably been playing havoc with the softball tournament out at Bogle Park, but hopefully they can keep that somewhat on schedule. But now I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing well, man. Doing well. It's a little easier to keep a single elimination tournament on schedule because you've seen what it's like in Hoover with a double elimination tournament. That last year was a complete and utter mess of a baseball tournament. And I think doing single elimination probably helps out a little bit.
Yeah, and of course baseball. Yeah, for softball, well, the games are a little bit shorter, and 7 innings, and although 2 of them went extra innings, that's kind of what messed them up. I think one went 10 innings and one went 8, and they only got 3 games in. So I think if I got this right, I think Arkansas may play the late game tonight, assuming they can get the other games in. But Tom and Charlie from our paper were down at Hoover last year, and Arkansas didn't play well, and then there was all the delay, so. I was glad not to be there, but the plan is for me to go this year. So hopefully, get better weather down there.
I want to talk about basketball with you because today's the last day for men's and women's players to enter the transfer portal. And this coincides with the beginning of, I guess it's like a 2.5 week period between the date when players can take their name out of the draft. Those that have kept their eligibility options open, like a Devo Davis, like a Jordan Walsh. And Walsh, obviously is at the NBA draft combine, and Devo did not get the invite. So these next 2.5 weeks are really interesting. It's already been an interesting offseason for men's basketball because of, just the way that they usually that you deal with the roster. You got guys moving on to the draft, 4 of them at the combine, and 1 of them that didn't get invited. And then all these newcomers that have come in. But these next couple of weeks are interesting in a different way because now, you wonder who's going into the portal. Well, Mackay says he's coming back. It's a whole other story. But you're still waiting on Devo. You're still waiting on Jordan Walsh. And those are the last 2 pieces as far as like scholarship concerns. And then there's the whole Ron Holland thing and Grant Nelson. It's just a very interesting time to be following roster management for Arkansas basketball.
Yeah, it's a challenge really for college basketball coaches in general. Obviously, Eric Musselman and his staff have really, done a great job of navigating the portal, going back to his days at Nevada. When he got the Martin twins, of course, when Eric was first in Nevada, guys had to sit out. Now that doesn't happen. Guys can have immediate eligibility, but it's kind of like baseball coaches. Baseball coaches have to deal with the draft in the summer, and then figuring out if guys are going to sign, and it's a real challenge trying to put a roster together late in the summer. I would think, and Dave Van Horn does a really good job with that, and so do other coaches, obviously. But yeah, I mean, Eric Musselman, he may have a pretty good idea if guys are going to stay in the draft, or they may be telling the guy, "Hey, we'd love to have you. We need a spot. You're going to have to be patient if you want to come here. We're going to have to wait a little while to let you know." I don't know where Devo's head is. I mean, just because you don't get invited to the combine doesn't mean you're going to get drafted, but I haven't seen him listed on any mock drafts, and that doesn't mean he couldn't get drafted, or maybe he just wants to go, have a shot to make an NBA roster, play overseas or whatever. And I think 78 guys got invited to the combine. Well, there's only going to be 58 picks. There's going to be 2 less because the Bulls and I think the Wizards got penalized a pick for tampering, second-round pick. So just because you go to the combine doesn't mean you're going to get drafted. I mean, the NFL invites over 300 guys, I think, and they have like 270 picks. So it's a good sign. You can go there and help yourself. But yeah, I guess in answer, talk about your original question about putting rosters together, it's a big challenge. But Eric Musselman always seems to figure things out, and things may not be settled yet. Right now they're right at 13. If everybody comes back, if Jordan Walsh and Devo came back, but maybe one of them comes back, neither, both. I don't know. And so there could be other movement. As we've seen, a guy like Darian Ford says he's coming back. Then they're probably in room, and now he's moving on. He's in the portal. So, just because somebody says they're coming back doesn't mean they're going to be back either. from their decision, or maybe because the coaching staff has to maneuver the roster a different direction.
Bob, do you think that Muss just absolutely loves being a GM as well? Because it's what it kind of feels like. You're in this talent pool, and if all these players kind of have a point value or a set of numbers that they're trying to get to money-wise, and there's a certain amount of schools that will put the money up, and Arkansas is one of them, then you kind of get to be a GM too. How much do you think he relishes that? Are we worried about losing him to the NBA anytime soon?
Well, I don't know. I think if you look at Eric's career, I think he did a good job. The NBA is so volatile. He goes to Golden State. I think they'd won 18 games. He leaves them to 38 wins. He's runner-up coach of the year to Greg Popovich, from San Antonio. He's won a bunch of titles. And then the next year he gets fired. They have some injuries, have a similar year, he gets fired. He goes to Sacramento 1 year. We know Sacramento had a good year this year, but that franchise has historically struggled. He has 1 year and gets fired. So that's very volatile in the NBA. And, of course, Eric, him and his dad, were pro coaches. So I would think there's much more job security. That's just my thought. If you have a really good college program like Eric does at Arkansas, and you have more control. I remember talking to Speedy Claxton about this, who NBA player played for Eric at Golden State. Mm-hmm. He was the Hofstra coach. And I remember talking to Speedy before the game. I don't know if I should call him Speedy. I don't really know him, but I think that's a great name. I just like saying Speedy. And I said, well, I talked to him about it. And he basically says that Eric got a raw deal at Golden State. They did a good job, but they had a lot of injuries. And I said, well, do you see Eric more? I said, are you surprised that he's done so well in college? Because he never coached in college, until he worked as an assistant. Now he's really done great at Nevada and now Arkansas. And he said he thought Eric was actually built more for college because you have more control in college than you do in the NBA. If Eric were to go back to the NBA, I assume he would have some say in the roster, but the GM puts the rosters together. And so I hope, just because I don't like to do coaching searches, that I like dealing with Eric. He's good to deal with from a media standpoint. I hope he sticks around because I'm too old to do another coaching search. But I would think if you're Eric or really John Calipari, whoever, you have much more control over everything at a college level than you do in the NBA. And so I think, Eric, hopefully he's happy at Arkansas. He's done really well. But, he's young enough. If he decided to shift gears back to the pros, he obviously could. But, yeah, to answer your question, I think he likes, putting a roster together. Now, in the I guess it was the CBA and then the G League, or it was called the I can't remember the D League.
It was the D League then.
Yeah, from the CBA to the D League to the G League. And but it's always been the same. It's the minor leagues for the NBA, like AAA baseball. And Eric talked about how he thought putting a roster together because guys could go sign overseas or get called up to an NBA team or whatever. And that flexibility and ability to adjust on the fly, he thought that has really helped him in the transfer portal world. Now we have in college basketball, so I think Eric has an edge above a lot of college coaches, or most everyone, because he's got that NBA experience. He basically kind of he runs his practices like NBA practices, from what guys like Joe Klein have told me that have been to practices and played NBA for a long time. Scouting reports are like NBA. I think he has a real advantage that he can tell guys, well, if you want to get ready for the NBA, come play for me, because I was an NBA coach and I was a pro coach for a long time. I've got all these contacts. I know what they're looking for, and so I think he has a big edge as a college coach that he wouldn't have as an NBA coach.
Yeah, when you talk to, I've talked with Dave Van Horn about the differences between people have asked me before, why do you think Dave Van Horn didn't ever try to be a major league manager? You just don't see a lot of college baseball coaches that attempted to do that. I think like Dick Hauser is one of them, and he's really one of the only guys I can think of. You've had just a few instances of a guy going from being like a pitching coach in college to going straight to the major leagues, Wes Johnson, and he came back to college. I think that was just because I think he liked being a college pitching coach a little bit better. There is the feel that when you're working in college, yeah, you get an opportunity to have more say on who it is you're coaching. And it's like I got in not an argument, but I was in a conversation with somebody over the weekend that was telling me about how Kendall Briles would be just such a genius if you gave him the right players. And I'm thinking, well, then he's in the wrong part of football. He should be in the NFL. Like, I think he's a really good offensive coordinator. But if you're telling me that he needs great players to do great things, well, you're responsible for bringing those players in. I mean, there is that responsibility that goes along with it. With a professional team, general manager could get fired, and the manager or the head coach might stay around. In college, you know where it all starts and stops with.
Well, yeah, you look at the SEC in baseball, and Dave's in his 21st season at Arkansas. Mike Bianco has been at Ole Miss for 22, 23 years. Tim Corbin, I think, is in his 21st year. I mean, if you're winning at a high level in college, you can keep that job, forever, as long as you want it, really. I mean, I couldn't even tell you who's the quote dean of major league managers who's had the longest current tenure. I couldn't even tell you. I know Mike Scioscia had a really long tenure with the Angels.
I'm going to guess it's Dave Roberts. That's just my initial guess.
Yeah, and so I think pro sports in general are just more volatile. You don't have as much control over your roster. You never hear anybody talk about a major league player picking a team because of the facilities, because they all have pretty similar, maybe not Oakland, unfortunately, for A's fans. But I think in college, when you're a place like Arkansas and you have great financial backing, great fan base, great facilities, obviously, one of the reasons they built up, the facilities, because of the job Dave's done, building off what Norman DeBryan did, laying the foundation, getting Baum Walker Stadium built in the first place. But I just think if you're whether it's basketball, baseball, football, if you got it going in college, it's hard to beat that. I mean, there's a reason Nick Saban was in the NFL for 2 years and then came back to college. I'm not saying he couldn't be an NFL coach and be successful, but obviously he's got much more control over things at Alabama than he does with the Dolphins or any NFL team, because you're dealing with free agency and the salary cap, depending on the sport. And the Bucks coach, his name escapes me. I mean, he won the championship 2 years ago. He had the number one seed. They got upset by Miami. He looks like they might knock off the Knicks and get to the conference finals and 8th seed. He gets fired. I mean, that just doesn't happen in college unless you have some kind of, scandal or something. But so I think college, you have to work hard. You have to recruit, which you don't have to do in the pros. But I just think you have it going in college, whatever the sport, you have much better job security than you do in a pro sport.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts.